and welcome to Today in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone, and we continue our election series with Kerstin. I always want to get names wrong. Thank you for your patience. That is a candidate for City Council in Ward 6. Before we get started, I just do want to point out, last week we had the lovely Rachel Shapiro, and she was talking about our PMC Ride for Kids, raising money for Dana-Farber, and anyone who donated got a little bracelet. So I got my bracelet in the mail today. So I want to thank Rachel for sending that. She picked a perfect color for me. So Kirsty, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really glad that you're here today.
Thank you for having me. You know, it's kind of finally nice to be able to actually put a real face to the name.
Right, to be in a room together.
We have a long time.
Yeah, it's such a treat to be back in studio.
I'll bet.
I'm glad we're here. I want to talk a little bit. I know we talked not that long ago, but I wanted to, we might recap a little bit of what we chatted about last time to make sure viewers who didn't see that had a chance to get to know you, and some new stuff that we want to talk about today. So I want to start first with, in general, tell me about your decision to run for City Council. It's a big commitment.
It is. That's true.
Right? Tell us about your why you want to do this and put in the work and serve our community.
I will do that. May I change the subject for 1 minute?
Of course you can.
So I know that you donated the breakfast on Saturday morning at the Davis House where the ramp was being built.
I did.
Thank you.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. I was hoping I was going to fly under the radar with it, but for those of you who are watching, it was my pleasure to do that. Many of you met Jamil's family last week when we were talking, and a whole bunch of fabulous volunteers are building a ramp for Jamil to be able to come back. And I dropped off some treats for them, along with some other volunteers who dropped some things off.
And we lucked out. It wasn't blazing hot out like it is today.
Yes, and everybody was working very hard.
Everyone worked hard.
It was my pleasure to be there and to do that, support that little
Thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
I snagged a donut.
Good, I'm glad that you did.
I did, yeah.
I was trying to pick all the things that are my favorites.
So pumpkin was one of them? That's what I snagged.
That's what we said? Yes, pumpkin is one of mine. Although I'm not a big pumpkin spice overall person, but pumpkin muffins are pretty good.
There you go.
Yeah.
So back to your original question, you indicated that this is a big time commitment, and you're right, it is, and why I felt that I should do this, why I felt that I needed to do this. I love the people of Ward 6. It's a diverse community. Not only is it diverse people-wide, but it's diverse city-wide, so there are areas such as where I live on Pearl Street, which are kind of down in a valley, and we're surrounded by wetlands. Then there are the uplands area behind the Ledges project. There are small neighborhoods which have been there forever. There's new building going on, and I want everyone within my ward to know that they have a voice and that I am their voice. The message on my cell phone, as I've said before, the message on my cell phone says that if I cannot answer you right now, I will call back within 24 hours. I've missed 2 phone calls in the past 5 years. So.
Well, I'm exhausted thinking about your life.
My life is busy. Yeah, my life is busy.
That's incredible. Well, thank you for running, and to you and all the candidates. Look, this is a big commitment, and this is hard work, and I'm really grateful for all the people who step up to serve us.
As am I. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, being in a position like this. I really firmly believe that local government plays an incredible role in our individual quality of life. Yes, national and state level politics and campaigning and candidates are obviously very important to us, but there is something in the day-to-day operation of our city that really comes down to the folks like yourself who we are running and we elect to City Council. Tell us about someone that you admire and hope to have learned from over the years observing.
Good question. I think there isn't necessarily one person whom I admire, rather it's a committee. I greatly admire the school committee. My children there's a lot of age difference between my children, and I've had children who've gone to school, graduated in 2011, and my youngest graduated in 2019. And I have seen throughout that tenure, I've seen the school board really rally around the school system. I remember when the school system was, when the high school was designated a level 3 school and was potentially going to have issues.
So just for those who may not be familiar, level 3 meaning you are at risk of losing your certification.
That's correct.
If you continue to perform at that level, correct?
That's correct. So if a school is designated level 3 for 2 consecutive years, it can potentially lose its accreditation, which means students will have trouble getting into college. The school system itself can lose federal funding. It's a huge issue, and I saw our school system in 1 year go from a level 3 school system to within several points of reaching a level 1 designation. That could not have been done without the principal, without the administration, without the staff, and without all the students who rallied around it and said, yes, we can be this, we want to be this. And the school committee was right there advising, creating policies, but not without including the entire school system. That's who I most admire. They took what could have been potentially disastrous and rectified it 180 degrees, and look where we are now. More and more and more of our students are not going on to 4-year colleges, but are going to colleges out of state, going to Ivy League colleges. That says a lot about us. There is a plethora of AP classes, advanced placement classes being offered now. This is a place to be now, and I'm glad that I'm here, and I'm glad that I'm a part of it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that that's a really good example of the school committee in particular engages with the public quite often. There has been some very big challenging situations.
Oh, sure.
And keeping the communication lines open, those are awesome qualities for someone in this role. So I really appreciate you sharing. That's a great example.
Thank you. And you know, you're right. It potentially could have been challenging. No one likes change. Change is hard. I think that once the amount of communication and the amount of transparency greatly helped, and eventually the entire city rallied around it, it was a thing to behold.
Yeah, it is. And we've tested our schools and our systems and our policies this last year.
Yes,
so,
we have.
We've put those skills to the test. Let's talk about Ward 6 specifically. What are some of the big challenges and opportunities that you see for either businesses that are in the ward or for residents?
Good question. Some of the challenges that I see certainly is the area on Main Street, the 1073, 1071, across the street, or next door, 1071 Main Street. The Ledges area is being blasted. I think the blasting has ended now, but the area itself was under some significant scrutiny due to all the blasting. I was not immune to it. Like many of my fellow citizens, I have cracks in my foundation, I have cracks in my ceiling, I have cracks in my wall. I've spent a small fortune on pest control, 4-legged furry, not wanted pest control.
Not fun.
No.
Not fun furry visitors.
Nope, not fun furry visitors. So I identify with many of my constituents when they say this has caused major upheaval. I was working from home during the advent of the blasting and could tell you when it was coming because I would hear the all clear sound, and then there would be a glitch, and then it was almost like a shock wave, and you just knew what was happening. The floor would shake, and as I said, I have cracks everywhere, which are going to have to be repaired. One of the opportunities that I see, well, I see several opportunities. One piece of opportunity is the ability to identify with my constituents, but to get out there and really walk the ward, as I have been doing. I've walked nearly every single street since July 1st, and it's hot out.
You picked a hot time of year, I was just going to say.
Yeah, or pouring rain. Yeah, or pouring rain.
We can't control Mother Nature, so it's good to get out there and get used to it.
And
right?
you know what, honestly, Samantha, if you're going to get wet, you're going to get wet. You go home and you dry off. But I've walked nearly every street since July 1st. Right. I will be walking again in September and walking again in October and making phone calls. I have people who just want someone to listen to them. I was able to fix a simple issue. Someone within the ward complained about mail service being delayed, significantly delayed. I was able to place a phone call to the post office to find out that they're suffering the same thing everyone else is suffering, a shortage of staff, and please be patient with us. But when I was able to relay that to said person, it removed the fears. It removed the angst, which is what I'm here for. One of my role models at this point is Alderman Dillon, who is very, very well known and well recognized within his ward.
I'm very fortunate that he is my city councilor, and he is indeed very incredibly responsive.
He is. He's a really, really good guy and a good role model. And so I try and think about what would Jeff Dillon do in this situation, and I try and model after him. I think one of the opportunities, another opportunity that's there is there was a city council meeting where there was a lot of discussion around the area on 1071 Main Street, which is at this point enclosed, contaminated site. And there is a company which has come out, which has said, we can remediate it for you because it's contaminated. We can remediate it for you. However, in return, we're going to need to build 54 houses or 54 units to cover the cost of remediation. The funding is there. The site has been designated not a Superfund site, thank God, but it's been designated as remediable, and a lot of it has already been, a good amount of it has already been remediated. A better possibility, since we've lost so much open land in Ward 6, is to continue to remediate that and then clean and leave it as open land.
Now, I am not intimately familiar. What kind of contamination is it that's there?
PCPs,
Okay.
carcinogens. Okay. So PCPs are something that dry cleaning shops, dry cleaning stores often have as residual. This is not what the site was, but PCPs are the chemicals used in many former dry cleaning operations to pull the dirt and soil out of the laundry without actually wetting it. Okay. The nice thing about this, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the nice thing is that the groundwater is not contaminated. It's the soil, and most of the soil, which was called slag, which was left in piles, has been cleared out. So what's left is some testing, which is not terribly expensive, some testing, and then why not open it up as open space? Put another park there, put open space, put another baseball diamond. It'd be a great space for open space and walking trails.
Great. So, so let's talk a little bit about growth. You bring this example is a great one. So, growth isn't inherently bad.
That's true.
In fact, in many ways, it brings good things to us. Mm-hmm. But growth is a challenge in a city, right? We have limited space. Tell us a little bit, because in your role as city council, obviously you're responsible for Ward 6, but you also represent the city overall. And you participate in lots of voting and permitting and budgets and a whole bunch of things that affects the city overall. How will you approach things like this, somebody coming in and wanting to build significant new housing or significant new industrial space? What's kind of your philosophy?
I think my philosophy is akin to your own. Growth in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. If there was no growth, we would still be witnessing the tanneries here in town. Growth is not necessarily in and of itself a bad thing. Too much growth can prohibit other forms of, such as the entertainment, such as the open fields, the open space. It encroaches on the wildlife, so that is why we wind up with pests in our yard. That is why we wind up with coyotes that are hungry. That's why. So it makes sense to have some growth.
I just have to stop you. I have to give you credit for inserting coyotes in our conversation. If you get orange cones also in there, I'll be extremely impressed.
I'm working on it.
You still have a few minutes to
I
sneak
do
that
still
in there.
have a minute. Yeah, I do still have a few minutes. So again, growth is, you're right, growth is not necessarily a bad thing. However, we're at kind of a crossroads now. So the city itself has the city is supposed to have 10% affordable housing. Right now we have 10.5% affordable housing. So we're a little bit over the threshold. The problem becomes January 1st, some of that affordable housing falls off the designation. So now we're under again.
Help me understand that. It falls off the designation because housing pricing has risen, or what causes it to fall off the designation?
Because it's designated affordable housing for only so many years.
Got it. So when it was built, it was designated affordable. So it's not aggregate percentage of housing in the city. It's related to new building construction in some period time-wise back. I don't expect you to be an expert in this. I'm just curious to make sure I understand it.
So you're right. So the way that affordable housing works is that when any new complex is built, 10% is called 40B rule. Okay. 10% of it is supposed to be designated affordable housing. So for instance, if you build a 10-unit building, 1 unit has to be designated affordable housing. If you have 100 units, 10 units of those have to be designated affordable housing. And here's part of what happens is that in the interest of the people, oft those units are put together so that the children are riding their bikes together. So you can put orange cones in front of the street.
Oh, that was impressive. You did
it.
So I just want to make sure. So what you're saying is, what we know is that oftentimes developers will use 40B because we need to hit a threshold in the city as justification for building additional apartments and things. And right now we have hit our number, so we're fine, but we're going to slip underneath that, which means we're open and vulnerable to additional development with maybe not as much control over how much of it gets built. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Absolutely, you are. So there is, right now within this city, there are 2,100 new units being built. So in theory, 210 of those should be designated affordable housing. If some of those existing ones fall off the radar, now we're looking at new. And affordable housing is not a bad thing. The going rate for a 2-bedroom apartment is $2,000. Nobody can afford that.
It's not quite affordable.
No, it's not affordable housing. So what's happening is the Ledges project up on 1073 Main Street came about as a result of not having enough affordable housing. So now we're looking at another project on the end of Presidential Way, New Boston Street Presidential Way. We're looking at Avalon Apartments at Woburn Crossings. So those apartments areas could potentially fill in the lag in creating affordable housing. It's my concern, and I got there a little bit roundabout, and I apologize, but my concern is that the city itself doesn't need to have $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 houses. I'm all for affordable housing. Affordable housing, as I said, could mean a $1,000 apartment and children who can go to school as opposed to children who are without a permanent home. As a former director of a shelter, I saw a lot of children without a permanent home. That should never be allowed to happen.
Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that. We, to the best of my knowledge, don't have a shelter in Woburn for addressing direct needs of those who might be homeless or in transition. We have, referral services and things. I know many residents over time have sort of asked about and raised the issue, should Woburn be investing more in infrastructure to help those who are in transition directly as a city? What's your thought about that?
So, as a former director of a shelter, I saw many, many children who came in without a permanent place to call home. I saw parents who could neither read nor write. I saw parents who couldn't fill out job applications. I saw parents who didn't know how to actually cook a healthy meal. So I am all for affordable housing, and also, contingent upon that, I am a staunch advocate for reading classes, decreasing the rate of illiteracy. For one of the programs I had wanted to create several years ago in conjunction with the Council of Social Concern is I had the means to bring in a chef who could teach people how to prepare the foods that they were taking, that they were benefiting from the food pantry.
Oh, what a wonderful idea.
Thank you.
I love that. I might, not because we're very fortunate and don't need to rely on the pantry, but not everyone in my house cooks very well. So I wouldn't mind sharing having them cook a little better. But I love that idea.
Thank you. I'm all for addressing mental health needs. Someone who is concerned about where he or she is going to sleep tonight can't do well in school. So I'm all for advocating an increased mental health presence. I'm all for advocating attaching mental health advocates to the police department, to the fire department. There are calls which go out to police departments every day which don't need to tie up their resources. Mental health advocates could go out, assess the situation, de-escalate the victim, take said individual to a hospital for evaluation if needed. There are other ways to ensure that yes, we can address infrastructure needs, we can address needs, we can address mental health needs, so that we're keeping people off the street, so that the infrastructure is now available to be built out at relatively little cost.
These are amazing ideas. Let's talk a little bit about the work that you've done in the past. Has clearly built up a lot of empathy and a lot of skills. Tell us about how you would apply those to the position of City Council here in Woburn.
Good question. My children and my husband like to say to me, and I did not create this quote of my own, I borrowed it from somewhere, I am red tape's worst nightmare. I advocate...
I just can't help but chuckle. I love it. That's amazing.
I advocate tirelessly for those who need someone to listen to them, for someone whose issues need to be addressed, for those who cannot advocate for themselves. I currently, aside from running for City Council, I currently run my own business where I fill out paperwork for people, where I am working right now with an individual who is quite elderly and paying $190 a month for cell phone, for cable. There's no need for that. I advocate tirelessly for my people. I listen. I try not to offer an opinion because people just want to be heard. I try and ensure that I'm doing listening, and I do exactly what you did a few minutes ago, was to paraphrase it. If I understand you, this is what you said, to ensure that I understood correctly. And if I don't understand correctly, I want people to say to me, that's not what I meant. And then I will always say, I'm sorry, let me say it again. I go back to City Council, I advocate tirelessly for people. I worked with the Board of Directors of Council of Social Concern for nearly 20 years. I advocated tirelessly for the subcontractors who took in at-risk children. I advocated for the people who worked in the food pantry. I advocated for the people who needed the food pantry. At one point, I had to advocate for the executive director, and I did that as well.
I think it's, thank you for that. Clearly you have a long history of service to our city, and we're really grateful. It's a special gift, and it only happens when people like yourself step up and aim to do that. You talked about visiting residents and walking in the streets and exploring the city. Tell us what people are telling you. What are they telling you are the things that they are excited about, or maybe the things that they are frustrated by?
The things that the people on my end of the city are excited about is the level of education. There are more and more students who are excelling and who are taking the AP classes. There are more and more students who are involved in extracurricular activities. There are more and more students who are finding their niche in giving back to the community, in being able to express themselves, and I'm not good at the pronouns, but being able to express themselves as LGBTQ.
You got it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I am, the thing that I'm hearing, the things that I'm hearing most prominently from the people whom I've interviewed are, we need someone who listens to us and advocates for us, and not just for some of us, but for all of us. And we need to stop the building. And again, there are 2,100 new units going in as we speak. something's got to give. If we're putting that many units, then we need to be adding just as much empty space, usable space.
I have a question for you because you raised I think a good point, which is representing all folks in a city. That's a tricky balance. It's easier when someone is expressing a need that you are familiar with or you agree with or sort of philosophically behind. Sometimes residents will come with things that maybe are more challenging to represent. Tell us about how you kind of find the balance and make sure that you are in fact understanding the needs across your ward and representing them into the city council.
I think I can best do that by illustrating an example. I worked as an advocate, a parent advocate for a family with several children on the spectrum, and several of those children are entering the school system, came out of the Birth to 3 program with a lengthy list of services, only to be told by the school system your child doesn't qualify for services. And after having interviewed children, gone over the records, I had to find a way to explain to the parent that the parents had done such an incredible job with their children, they were not going to qualify for services right now. And the best way that I could do that was to put myself in those parents' place and then say, I can understand this is very hard. I can understand this is not what you want to hear. This is why it happened, and you have advocated so tirelessly for your own children that you don't need me. And in the perfect world, in any form of government, city council, school committee, parents, city administrators, citizens should know that at the end of the day, if I've done my job well, and I do, that your voice has been heard in city council. And is it always going to be the resolution that you seek? Perhaps not. But do you need to know that I advocated for you and what was best for you and that I heard you? Yes, you do. I tell people this in my ward, I may not be able to stop the building and the Ledges project, but I can and will ensure that those like myself who have been affected are adequately compensated, and I will do that.
I kind of have no doubt. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a really helpful conversation. I really appreciate getting to know you and what's important to your ward better. Before we wrap up, tell us a little bit about where folks can learn more about your candidacy, get in touch with you, however you'd like to stay connected with the community.
Thank you. So I have a Facebook page, Lochrie C Council. I think Lochrie for City Council was too long. Lochrie, Lochrie, C Council. I also have my own Facebook page, which is linked. My first name is Kerstin. My last name is Lochrie. I can be reached at 781-690-0517. My email address is my last name, Lochrie, the number 110 @gmail.com. Please, and I mean it, reach out to me. Stop me in the street. Tell me you need to talk to me. I'm never, ever too busy for anyone.
I want to know who the 109 people who got Lochrie at Gmail before you are.
So actually they did.
Or does 110 a meaningful number for you?
110 is my house number.
Oh, perfect. I love it. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's really fun. Thank you so much for joining. That's
Thank you
great.
for having me.
And thank you all for watching. And as always, please continue to take good care of each other.